Prayer isn't so much to change God's heart, it's to change our hearts. You know, I think something happens to us when we pray. Prayer tends to sharpen our focus. It gives us an appreciation of our blessings, or it does me. Somehow, when I pray, even if I'm begging for something, the act of praying itself reminds me that I already have way more than I deserve. You ever been there? Often in thinking of the ways I'm already blessed, it makes me think that even if I don't get what I'm asking for, I'll be deliriously happy if I just don't lose what I already have. Does that make sense? I like what happens to my heart when I pray. And maybe that can be explained in understanding that when I pray, my mind is being transformed as I get my priorities in order. In other words, my mind is being renewed, and in that renewal, I'm transformed. And that includes my heart. And when my heart is transformed, then I can more clearly see the will of God. That's scriptural. That's biblical. There's a very familiar passage in Romans 12:2 that says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." So prayer renews my mind, and it transforms me. Now, I've always been honest with you, so let me just say that I'm a little peeved that Brett assigned us a prayer series. Somebody told me Brett was in this service. I'm not going to call him out. Mr. Trashbag Pants himself is right here. But I'm a little peeved about the prayer series thing, and I don't know. I guess it's because I just think prayer is so difficult, so personal. It's so personal and unique that it makes for a difficult sermon theme, I think. Because the way prayer affects us is so unique and personal. Your experiences may be far more colorful than mine. In some cases, also more explosive and life-changing. When I pray, I find more contentment because I know that I've acknowledged that I'm not in control. In an odd way, I also feel stronger and more emboldened because I know I've put my life into the hands of one who is not intimidated by the severity of the mess that I've gotten myself into. If you'll allow this odd analogy, it's kind of the same feeling you would get if you were in a bad accident when the ambulance finally arrives. I've been in a bad accident. I've been on the scene first in the event of some really bad accidents. And I've been with people who were having medical emergencies. And I'm not a medical person. And, you know, I'm all in a tizzy because I don't know exactly what to do. And man, when I see that ambulance rolling up the road, and I see those lights, and I hear that siren, and they pull up in the driveway, and those doors open, and two uniformed people get out, and they immediately go and get what they need, and they're on their way to help. Oh, it's just such a relief. Prayer eases my mind, kind of like that. The famous Dwight L. Moody was a 19th century preacher, and he was a master preacher, but he was known for being a bit unpolished and unrefined. His grammar and sentence structure wasn't always on par with the more well-educated preachers. Because of his pioneer spirit, his crude appearance, and his lack of refinement, he often drew criticism from those who considered themselves to be from a slightly higher social class. Once he was preaching a revival meeting at a church that was known for its upper-class parishioners, and Moody preached a sermon about prayer and about how we should take everything to God in prayer. After the service, there was a well-dressed lady obviously very respected in the congregation, and she marched down the aisle to where Mr. Moody was standing, and she said, "Mr. Moody, I don't bother God with all my little problems. I only take my big problems to God." And Moody replied, "Madam, would you mind telling me which of your problems qualifies as a big problem to God?" That speaks to me. I believe that prayer changes our hearts, but I'll also tell you how prayer won't change your heart, and that has to do with your attitude when you pray. This is a true story. It was an elder in a Bible study, small group type Bible study meeting. And he once said, they were talking about prayer, and he made it clear that he didn't believe that prayer changed anything. He said, "I don't believe prayer changes anything." And someone beside him was kind of surprised. They said, "Well, if you don't believe prayer changes anything, why do you pray?" And he said, "Because I'm commanded to." What a sad, empty conversation that must be. He prays because he's commanded to.